there's so much to discuss as it pertains to your Philadelphia Eagles, right? So many questions, so many predictions, so many concerns. But this man that I'm about to bring on next, I can't wait to hear his perspective on the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm so appreciative to this man. I texted him yesterday. He got back to me in less than an hour, less than a half an hour? The first 10, 15 minutes? This man is truly, truly one of the humblest, one of the realest, man. I had so many opportunities to kick it with this man, just talk football. He's just a dope dude. Love his energy, love his passion for the game. This man has really, really, really earned his stripes in this industry. So I want to take it step by step here because he deserves his flowers. So buckle up, my friend. I don't want you to get bashful here. This man is the former associate producer for NBC's Sunday Night Football. And did I mention he was recognized with an Emmy for his work there? On top of that, he was former host of the 700 Level Show on NBC Sports Philadelphia. He's a former radio host on 94 WIP and CBS Sports Radio. He had his second stint at NBC Sports Philadelphia as a host on a multitude of platforms and shows. He's hosted his own morning sports radio show on 97.5 The Fanatic. On top of that, he is currently, and I repeat, currently the creator and the host of his own daily digital sports program available on YouTube. Man, oh man, I can go on and on about this brother. The work he's putting in the game, how electric his personality is, how infectious his personality is. Like I said, currently the creator and host of his own digital sports program, The Farzetta Show, and he will be making his debut on the new Bet Parks Eagles pre- and post-game show presented by Pond Lee Hockey, featuring himself, Derek Gunn, and Seth Joyner. Man, oh man, this man is a giant amongst giants. You know who he is, Marc Farzetta. My friend, how are you feeling?
I'm fantastic, brother. How you been? Tell him long time no see, bud. It's great to hear from you. What's going on?
Yes. I'm doing great, my friend. I'm doing well. I'm here just building my platform here. And
yeah,
I'm
with
really
a wooden samurai sword, you crazy maniac. What's going on back there? I like that you just have that casual flex in the back of your shot.
Well, my friend, I am a man of the people. I consider myself worldly, right? I'm an anime fan. I've always been interested in just the Japanese culture, the samurais. I love kung fu movies. You know what I'm saying? I love my sports. I got my globe right here. You feel what I'm saying? So I'm just a worldly brother. You feel me? But Farzy, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you're here, my friend. First and foremost,
I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for thinking of me, man. No, it's good to catch up. I'm looking forward to talking to Birds about them Eagles with you and all that type jazz, man. It's great to see you.
Definitely.
How's Dad doing?
I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask how's the wife, but Dad's great. Dad's doing well. Mom's doing well. Wife's doing great. Family's good. How are the kids? How's the wife? How are your parents?
I try to avoid my family like the plague. No, they're great. Everyone's good. Little Toots. My daughter Emmanuel just turned 5. My son's 2.5.
Wow.
Really strong kid. My son, both of them actually could be offensive linemen when I think about it. But yeah, they're great. Everything's good, man. Yeah, we're getting ready to go down to Virginia. I'm gonna do a little fishing. I'm gonna have to take video and show our boy D Gunn how the men do it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have to do a little fishing, go a little largemouth bass. You know, I might have to dive in the water with just a knife. You know, because that's what real men do. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to a couple of days getting away. And here's what's always amazing to me about when you go down, like where you're at, right? I'm sure you could get to quiet. And where I live, you don't really up this area. You don't get to quiet, as you well know. I always forget what nothing sounds like. And this guy that's our cousin, my wife's cousin, they have this estate, more or less, that's like on 500 acres shared by his entire family. It's like a compound. And it's just so quiet. Like, I don't even think they have a McDonald's in this town. Like, I have to do a lot of cooking before I go just so I have food that I'll eat. You know what I mean? Because you ain't getting the braciole down there. You ain't getting the good fresh pastas down there. You ain't getting the good stuff, the good chicken cutlet. You know what I'm saying? Everything is deep fried. There's no cheesesteaks down here. No, there are no cheesesteaks down here. And if they are, the bread sucks. All right. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to get in the proper headspace to go down there. I got about 5 hours, 6 hours worth of cooking I got to do before we go away for a couple days. So I do love that stuff. So I'm looking forward to getting in the kitchen and start slicing up some chicken breasts and rolling some brajol.
Farzy, I truly love how colorful you can communicate, man. I truly do. And you bringing up D-Gun earlier is hilarious. You know, one thing you don't want to do is stoke D-Gun's fire. But I got to ask you this, man. I got to ask you.
Yeah.
You, Derek Gunn, Seth Joyner, Bet Parks pre- and post-game show. Please tell me how this thing came together. I heard rumblings about it. I heard rumors, but now it's officially here. Please break down how this connection came about.
Seth Joyner just wanted to keep talking football with the Philadelphia Eagles fan base. Derek Gunn, Seth Joyner, myself, we all worked together in NBC. Derek Gunn longer than I did, especially longer with Seth. I worked with Seth over there for 2 seasons. Got to know him on a personal level. And look, I grew up obviously knowing who Seth Joyner is and was. I really got to know him in those 2 years at NBC. And then, of course, he and I were together on another platform. And with D-Gun, that D-Gun actually originally brought me into. And for me, I just really took to D-Gun. He and I really hit it off like 15 years ago when we first met. Seth, I just appreciate someone who doesn't really care about someone's reaction to his honesty. He's going to be honest. And I always joke with Seth, it's like everybody that's like either going for a prom outfit or a wedding dress or a tuxedo or whatever, they need to bring Seth Joyner along, because Seth Joyner will tell you, no, those pants make your butt look way too big. Like, he will tell you right exactly what he's thinking at all times. And to apply that to his love of loves, which is football and Eagles football and the way a defense should be run, the way a team should be run, to be right there and witness that man get riled up, to witness that man have a commitment to honesty and the real take, not the hot take, the cold take, or the take that will just get the most attention, but the real take, which our society is just deprived of nowadays, is a wonderful thing. And Derek Gunn is someone that really understands how a journalist is supposed to operate. And nowadays, journalism has been watered down. And Derek Gunn has a commitment to accuracy. He does not have a commitment to attention. And that's what so many people focus on right now. I'm going to say something. Oh, but that's stupid. It doesn't matter. It'll get attention. And I know that that's the way a lot of the world works. And that's not anything really all that new. It's just in a different platform now. But Derek Gunn wants to make sure that his audience is a well-informed, well-educated audience when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles and whatever it is they have going on. And I think someone actually described it to me rather perfectly as far as what my responsibility is with these two gentlemen. And it's just make sure that the train stays on the tracks. That's my job. Because Gunner and I, having known each other for so long and having so many interests, I mean, we love football and we love sports, but Gunner's a Renaissance man. You know what I mean? That's one of the things I love about him, and I could go back and forth on a lot of different things. And the last thing we'll talk about is football. But in this setting, we get to show our love for football, and to have a guy like Seth Joyner right there to really break it down for us is going to be a phenomenal thing. And really, this is Seth's way of directly reaching out to the Philadelphia Eagles fan base in order to continue to give his expert analysis on what the team is doing.
Okay, so how will people be able to find this show? Where can they find it? How can they support the show? Will they be able to see it in person, live? Just break down the dynamic and how people can get connected to this program.
Parks Casino in Ben Salem, right around the corner from my high school, Archbishop Wood. You guys could go to Parks Casino in Ben Salem. We'll be there for the pregame show for an hour. We'll be there for an hour and a half after the game for the postgame show. And that's where we'll be every single game day. To watch us on the digital platforms, we'll be on Seth Joyner Show channel on YouTube. We'll also be on ABC, 6abc.com. So check into 6abc.com and you can watch the show there. And across all your favorite social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook Live, Twitter, or X. You can watch us on there as well. So that's where we will be for you, Philadelphia Eagles fans.
Listen, I'm definitely going to tune in. I can't wait to see how this thing pans out. I know the kind of work you guys put in. I've seen it firsthand, and I really can't wait to just see this beautiful partnership that you guys have been cultivating well over a decade continue to flourish, my friend. Now,
thank you, brother.
Enough with the pleasantries. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
No. 8 minutes of pleasantries. I need more pleasantries. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. Yes.
Let's get into why we're really here. The Philadelphia Eagles are entering the 2024 campaign under a ton of pressure, a lot of expectation, especially coming off of the way the season went last year, right? But I first want to start with the most recent news when it comes to the current state of the Philadelphia Eagles 53-man roster and practice squad. First and foremost, were there any cuts or additions that took you by surprise?
I wasn't surprised by Jack Stahl being re-added to the roster, more or less, when it comes to the practice squad. I did think it was interesting, and I was surprised that the Eagles only kept 2 tight ends after preseason ended, and I was surprised that one of those tight ends was not E.J. Jenkins. He got practice squatted as well. Grant Calcaterra is just a guy, unfortunately, that can't stay healthy. He has talent. It's not like he's not talented. He just can't stay healthy. He's had his concussion issues. And I thought E.J. Jenkins showed more promise than Stahl, more promise than Calcaterra in this one preseason run than Calcaterra or Stahl showed really throughout the last 2 seasons. Now, I understand Stahl when it comes to being a blocking tight end. He has done a wonderful job in that regard. But I thought you would just continue, especially when you have Grant Calcaterra, who injury problem, and Dallas Goedert has injury problems as well. And you would have loaded up a little bit more on that position when it comes to the active roster and not just the practice squad. The other thing that surprised me, you have a tight end, or excuse me, you have a center, and Jason Kelce that just retired. You have a guy in Cam Jurgens that has never played center at the NFL level, and you thought it would be a good idea to go into this season without a backup center? Like right now, your backup center is Landon Dickerson. So if anything happens with your center, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to now hurt 2 positions and move Landon Dickerson over? I thought that was very curious. And when they cut McMahon, who was a 6th-round pick, I would say that was shocking, because I know how much they always put into their trenches, as they always say, around the draft time. You know, we're all about building the trenches. We're all about the offensive and defensive line. That's how we always do things. And you cut a guy you just drafted. That's a very rare occurrence. Now, I know he made the practice squad as well. And look, anything could change over the next week, and I understand that. But it's a very odd thing. I wasn't surprised that Paris Campbell got cut, especially after trading for Jahan Dotson. I think that's a good pickup. The linebacker room, the only thing that really surprised me there a little bit was the idea of Oren Burks not making the squad, Ben Van Sumeren making the squad instead. And again, they practice squatted Oren Burks. So those were some surprises. The only thing I would call shocking is that there was no legit backup center after cutdown day.
It's interesting, right? To me, it looks as if the Philadelphia Eagles are trying to exercise, although it comes with its own set of risk, it seems as though they're trying to exercise some level of quality control. They're not willing to keep you on this roster just to fill a quota, right?
Yeah.
If they want to keep the most talented people on this roster as much as they possibly can, and if they feel like they can double back and bring you back, and be it practice squad or whatever it may be, they'll do that. But it just seems like Howie Roseman is approaching this offseason very differently than he has in the past. Like you said, only 2 tight ends, right? Another trend that was kind of broken. Only coming in with 3 running backs, when over the past 4 seasons, you've come in with 4. Going really heavy on the defensive side, right? I got to ask you this. What does the construction of this Eagles roster say about Howie Roseman, this coaching staff, and the overall direction they're trying to take this team in?
Wow. That is the loaded question, has a negative connotation to it, but that's
robust. That's robust. How about that?
Yeah. It's I just heard this recently. It's one page in a novel that I'm going to get into. Let's put it this way. Howie Roseman's done a phenomenal job. I mean, you look at the fact that the Cowboys just had all the problems in the world signing CeeDee Lamb, but they got him. San Francisco 49ers had all the problems signing Brandon Ayuk, but they got him. Howie Roseman signed both his wide receivers with no problem in this offseason. So, that's the starting point as far as I'm concerned. The idea of the Eagles, even before we step foot on the football field, the idea that the Eagles brought in 2 new coordinators, one was almost immediately in Vic Fangio. The other, Kellen Moore, took a little bit, but they brought him in. This is a complete makeover of what you were doing. You brought in a guy not just to be your offensive coordinator, but let's face it, I don't even know right now. I don't remember who has the title assistant head coach in the Philadelphia Eagles, but it's Kellen Moore as far as I'm concerned. It's Vic Fangio as far as I'm concerned. Because really, they are the head
running back coach.
Okay, Jamal Singleton. So you have right now on this Eagles roster, on this Eagles coaching staff, you have a head coach of the offense, you have a head coach of the defense, and then you have Nick Sirianni, who has been not demoted by title, but certainly demoted by responsibility to now just be the – people use the term CEO head coach. I think that's a little too complimentary. I like to use regional manager, and now I'll use guidance counselor. He's a guidance counselor head coach. And I say that like out of honesty, not out of trying to be a jerk, but you have changed your offense completely, 95% according to your franchise quarterback. You've changed your defense to even the point where I'm watching them in preseason, and I'm going, this doesn't look like what I know about Vic Fangio. So that's interesting. The amount of times they blitzed in the preseason. I know they're not going to show everything, but it was different. You brought back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and first and foremost, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson wanted to come back. You cut Avonte Maddox, brought him back, made him into a safety, returned him to the safety position, I should say. And then you're able to go out there with this linebacking core, and you add a kid in Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who let's just say for a second, let's just say his name was Tom Smith, okay? The instincts are absolutely there with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Nakobe Dean actually looks like, first off, he's healthy, and second, looks like he's able to cover a lot of ground. And then you're also bringing in a guy like Devin White as your veteran leader to be your starting middle linebacker on this team, and he looks like the Devin White of a couple of years ago. And then you bring in another guy who has really been trying to cut his teeth throughout his entire career in the NFL, did it as a special teamer in Zach Bond. And Zach Bond goes to the preseason and looks pretty damn sharp and goes through training camp looking pretty damn sharp. So for me, I am really amazed at this roster. The only two questions I have that I would, if Howie Roseman was sitting in front of me, the only two questions I have is Bryce Huff really up to snuff when it comes to a 30% snap increase from last year? I mean, you're talking about a guy who played 40% of the snaps. You're talking about a guy when Vic Fangio, every time he was asked about Bryce Huff, continuously talked about Bryce Huff like he was a undrafted rookie trying to make the team. And Howie, I could just picture in the background being like, we just gave him $50 million, Vic. Say something nice. Then I look at the offensive side of things. The only other criticism I have is Cam Jurgens and Jaylen Hurts on the same page? Because I got every bit of confidence that Cam Jurgens can go out there and get 10 yards down the field, 15 yards upfield from a running back and make a block on a screen or a run, whatever, and do very similar things that Jason Kelce did from a physical standpoint. What I don't know, because I haven't seen this part of it yet at the NFL level, I haven't seen him shift protection. I haven't seen him communicate with Jaylen Hurts. All I've heard from Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni is that they're always talking. Okay, great. How does it apply on the football field in an actual game? Not a practice, not a joint practice, but an actual game. My questions are all about quarterback to center. I got confidence in both, but until I really see it, I can't answer the question of how they're going to perform together. The only reason I wanted to see Jalen Hurts, Cam Jurgens, and Kellen Moore, obviously, communicate in the preseason was to see them for a series or two, just get over that hump and get that experience of what it's like for the three of them to communicate from Kellen to Jalen, Jalen to Cam Jurgens at the line of scrimmage to Jalen Hurts. Like, just get all that down, get that out of the way. We're not going to know what that looks like, unfortunately, until we get into Brazil a week from today. But everything else, I think Howie Roseman has done a fantastic job from start to finish. Yeah, I got questions. It's not perfect. But when I'm looking at this roster, I'm looking at it top to bottom, and I'm looking around the league at other problems that other teams are having, and I'm just like, wonder what that's like. Because it's been a while since we've had to deal with something like that.
You know, as far as, you know, you've covered a lot of ground, kind of like Nakobe Dean, right? You covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, right. I go side to side, baby. Yeah.
But I appreciate it because what it did was it kind of just laid out the foundation of what this conversation is really going to consist of, right? Let's stay on the offensive side since that's where we left off. You know, you mentioned how we're still waiting to see what that relationship or on-field chemistry will look like between Jalen Hurts and Cam Jurgens. And you could take it a step further by throwing in Kellen Moore into the fold, right? There was a recent headline that came across the wire via 94 WIP, and Jaylen Hurts spoke about, the state of the franchise, basically. And he revealed that the organization essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but let's make it a little sexy. They basically stunted his development at the quarterback position because they relied on future Hall of Famer and Jason Kelce to pretty much handle all the line calls, to pick up the blitzes, make all the adjustments, so on and so forth, right? They took that off of a young Jalen Hurts' plate. That made sense for a rookie Jalen Hurts, right? Or even a second-year Jalen Hurts before we knew what he was. But when you enter that third year being the franchise guy, and, now he's entering year 4 of being the franchise guy, now it's time to start to see that evolution of Jalen Hurts taking full control, having autonomy of his offense. What were your thoughts when you heard that come across the wire from Jalen Hurts?
There's a big fat reason why Nick Sirianni has as little power as he has ever had. That's what jumped to mind. I know some people took it as a slight against Cam Jurgens. I know some people took it as a slight against Jason Kelce. I didn't take it like that at all. I took it as Nick Sirianni is halting or stunning the growth of Jalen Hurts. And that's what even Jalen Hurts said as far as the word halting. My progress was halted. He didn't say that it was Nick Sirianni, but how else? I don't understand any other way to take that other than the head coach of the football team, who again has had diminishing responsibility with this team, said, Jalen, don't worry about it because Kelsey's got it. I also then thinking about it down the line. Hold on a second. Is that why Jalen Hurts called Wink Martindale? Because he knew his coaches were like, don't worry about it. Jason's got it. He's like, no, man, I need to get better.
If you won't tell me, somebody else better tell me.
Exactly. So I think that answered a lot of questions that we had about this offseason, whether it was Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni not being on the same page, those two having a little bit of a falling out, and then at least getting back to a decent working relationship, it seems like. For me, that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to the idea of Jalen Hurts wanting to continue to learn, wanting to continue to develop, and then now that push has come to shove, and he knew probably going into that Buccaneers game that at the end of the season of the playoffs, all right, this is probably my last go-around with Jason Kelce. I need to make sure that I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to call Wink Martindale myself and be like, look, man, what were you guys doing? Because I need to crack this code. And Wink Martindale obviously was done with the Giants at that point. And they spoke, I believe, it was a 30-minute conversation. And it also speaks volumes for, I think, the character of Jalen Hurts. Like, all right, if I want an answer and somebody's not willing to answer me, guess what? You have just become a hurdle, and I'm going to leap over you to get to the answer. And whether it's an answer I like or an answer I don't like, I just need an answer. Because guess what that's going to make me? Better. That's going to make me better at my job. That's going to make me better working with Cam Jurgens. Because Cam Jurgens, like, he can be brilliant, off the charts, incredibly brilliant, and I hope he is. But, I mean, the other part of the story is just that Jalen Hurts had to rely on Jason Kelce more. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I don't take this as a huge slight, again, in that relationship. I take it more to the coaches. But it kind of makes sense when the veteran Hall of Fame center is all of a sudden out, and a younger guy who's never done it before is now taking over, and the elder statesman who is now Jalen Hurts, I would expect him to have a little bit more say in the matter, or expect him to help out the center in that situation. Because it's not like Jason Kelce just every single time turned around and told Jalen Hurts what to do. They still had communication. Jason Kelce, it's funny, whenever I've talked about this twice now over the last three times over the last couple of days, I'll tell you the same story. Dana Carvey. You know who Dana Carvey is? Comedian, actor guy?
I don't think I do.
David Spade. He was in Tommy Boy with Chris Farley.
Okay.
So these guys have a podcast. They're both Saturday Night Live alum. And every once in a while, they'll venture outside the comedic realm. And they had Jason Kelce on a couple months ago. And I listened to it because I was like, I want to see how these two guys interview Jason Kelce. And it was a great interview. It was so much fun. And Jason Kelce is in my age range. And he was a big fan of those guys growing up, just as I was. And they asked him a question about, is it like, basically it was like, again, they're comedians. But they were serious. Asking the serious question. Like, how do you determine the cadence, how many huts you have, something like that, you know? And Jason Kelce was like, well, that's between me and the quarterback, and the quarterback will call, the cadence essentially, and then we know when we have to kind of go on, and I'm also trying to recognize where the blitz is coming from. And then they asked, well, what about the quarterback? And he's like, oh, no, the quarterback, always has final say. I'm never in a situation. Jason Kelce said this. I'm not in a situation where I overrule the quarterback.
We've seen that though. That can't be. We've seen him overrule Jalen Hurts before.
I was thinking about it. I can't think of a time where Kelce turned around and was like, no, this is what we're doing.
You don't remember that play? I think it was a Chiefs game. You remember? I can't remember exactly what game it was last season. Hurts tried to make an adjustment. Kelce waved it off, and then they called the play. Do you remember that?
Was that his own? Was that the cadence, or was that where the line was going?
I don't know if it was cadence related, but there was something there was some adjustment Hurts was trying to make.
Okay.
And Kelce said, "Nah, we're going with this. We're going this way."
All right, I'll have to go back on that one.
I could be, I don't know the context of the wave off.
You are probably right.
But again, to play devil's advocate, Farzy, right?
Yeah.
Again, like you mentioned, Hall of Fame center. When Nick Sirianni got there, Kelce is a Super Bowl champion. It's almost like insulting to not lean on your veteran in that respect, right?
Okay. Sure, absolutely.
I just had to ask that. So,
well, are you talking about from Jalen Hurts to Jason Kelce?
Well, you mentioned the Nick Sirianni angle, right? Because you said it's not really a slight towards anybody else, but in your mind, you look at it as a slight towards Nick Sirianni.
Absolutely,
anything.
Absolutely.
So to your point, is it fair? And again, this is me just playing devil's advocate, trying to throw Sirianni some level of bail because I'm with you. He's kind of on the fringe with me.
Okay.
He comes in as a rookie head coach. Jalen Hurts is a starter. Jason Kelce, your future Hall of Fame center. He's a Super Bowl champion. He has pedigree. It would kind of be criminal not to rely on that guy to make the necessary adjustments or to kind of put most of it on his plate, right?
Yes. However, we're talking about developing a younger quarterback with a center that is getting ready to retire. So in my mind, that's like me knowing that there's fire on the other side of the door. And you're like, why shouldn't I open this door? I'm just like, don't open the door. And you're like, but why should I open the door? Just don't open the door. And then I'm leaving. And you're like, well, I've always wanted to find out. Ah! And then all of a sudden you're on fire. You know what I mean?
Okay. So you look at it as this should have been Jalen Hurts having more autonomy and control over the offense should have been something that they should have been working towards, not waiting for it to come.
Working towards is I think the best phrase there, because you have to understand the reason why. You can't just be you don't learn anything from someone just telling you, do this. Well, why am I doing it? Why are we reacting this way? So I understand that when I see it, I should react that way as well. Because what am I learning by Jason Kelce just saying, no, we're going to be protecting over here? I'm not learning anything from that. If I'm Jalen Hurts, I want to understand the reason why, the method to the madness. That's where I think this whole story points. That's what I think the whole story points back to, is that you have to teach someone, you have to teach the reasons why, not just X, Y, and Z. You have to explain why it's X, Y, and Z. That's what I think makes it better, either a student, pupil, in any regard, not just football. Like you might want to deviate from the process. And I know that's a dirty phrase to a lot of people, but you might want to deviate from it. Learn why you should learn why you should deviate, when you shouldn't deviate, when you should deviate, so that you just have a better overall understanding of what it is you're trying to do as an offense. Not just, I have to do this because I'm told to do this. I think if you want a guy to really improve, they have to learn what's going on and why it's going on around them.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about Jalen Hurts. For the most part, he's improved every year of his career. Now, in 2023, he did have a little setback, but statistically, he was pretty much the same guy. Just got to get the turnovers in check. And I think he actually shouldered a lot more of that offense, especially when things kind of started to go haywire and the coaching was very much abysmal. You bring in Kellen Moore to pretty much revamp this entire offense. You're obviously going to incorporate some semblance of what Jalen Hurts likes to do from the previous offense. But I'm curious to know, what's your perspective on exactly what Kellen Moore can provide Jalen Hurts and this Eagles offense that's very loaded with talent? A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley. You bring in Jahan Dotson. A lot has been invested on that side of the ball.
Yeah,
Kellen Moore has a lot of toys to play with. Break down how you think he utilizes those things.
First off, the idea of motion in this offense. I love it. Last year we listened to Nick Sirianni talk about motion. You don't really need to do it, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, motion's great. Love motion. Motion's fantastic. So motion, and that's not really that much of an exaggeration, but bringing that into the offense and a comfortability with Jalen Hurts that I don't think he had last year. There was something from this offseason that really stuck out to me about Jalen Hurts and this coaching staff now with Kellen Moore. Jalen Hurts was asked before the open practice at Lincoln Financial Field this year, he was asked about the turnovers last year, which are a stick in the mud for all of us. Like, that sticks out to us about last year more than anything, and led to a lot of the collapse at the end of the year, of course. But Jaylen Hurts was asked about it, and he said, I'm just trying to concentrate on me, put last year behind me, and do what I'm coached to do. Do what I'm coached to do. Last year, I remember talking about that Seattle game, and I've talked about the Seattle game, Eagles, Seahawks in Seattle this past year. I've talked about it, I feel like, ad nauseum throughout the offseason, because to me, that was the biggest telling sign to me that this coaching staff was in Jaylen Hurts' head. Now, again, talk about final say. If you're the quarterback, you're going to let that ball rip. You have final say over where that ball goes. But if your coaching staff is telling you, take the shot, and you're like, it's like it was in Seattle, 1st and 10, we're up 4 points in the fourth quarter with about 9 minutes to go. I'm taking a shot to Quez Watkins when I have Kenny Gainwell open at the line of scrimmage. Why am I doing that? Well, that's what we're coaching you to do. I believe Kellen Moore is teaching Jaylen Hurts. And from what I understand, what I've heard, he's teaching Jaylen Hurts all about ball security and all about situational football. And I know some people, when I say situational football, they talk about how a team performs on 3rd down or 4th down. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about situational football to the point where Jaylen Hurts, a guy who can take over a game, can downshift in a fourth quarter and simply become a game manager in that situation to make sure they hold on to the football, because that's what the situation calls for, and not give it up. And one of the number one ways they're going to do that is to, A, put guys in motion so they're a little bit more open, and you also see the defense. They give you a preview of what they're doing before they do it. And then on top of it, you're also telling Jaylen Hurts, don't be afraid to check down. Don't be afraid to throw around the line of scrimmage. And if it's hard for you to process that with Kenny Gainwell and DeAndre Swift, then you know what? This is what we're going to do. We're going to bring in Saquon Barkley, and he's going to be floating around the line of scrimmage. Can you dump it off to him? Yes? Okay, good. Right. Like, that to me is something that will go so far. I think when it comes to Kellen Moore, everyone's going to be in play. Everyone will get their love. And to be honest with you, it's one of the least things I'm worried about, because even under Brian Johnson, even under Shane Steichen, Miles Sanders got his, DeAndre Swift got his, A.J. Brown got his, Devontae Smith got his, and Dallas Goedert, when healthy, got his. So this offense is already well-versed in sharing the pigskin. So I think Kellen Moore brings a lot to this table. And I know initially a lot of people were worried about turnovers. A lot of people were worried about running up the score and almost comparing it to a fun-and-gun offense. I don't think that's the way Jaylen Hurts and this Eagles offense with Kellen Moore is going to approach it. I think it's going to be a much smarter overall process and program and system that you're going to see in Kellen Moore's offense.
If I had to draw an analogy out of that, essentially what you're trying to say is, hey, Jaylen Hurts, just because you got a Bugatti, just because you got a Ferrari, doesn't mean you got to drive way above the speed limit. It's okay to drive the speed limit. It's okay to hit the brake every now and again. Don't avoid stop signs. They're there for a reason.
Yeah. If you're just going to pick the kids up from school, do you really need it? No, you just use the Volvo, whatever. And then, you know what? Every once in a while, a special occasion at school, last day, you drive the Bugatti. You pick them up, and you're good to go after that.
Or if it's date night. Or if it's date night with Miss Farzetta, hey, you bring out the Lambo. Hey, Farzy, hey, you know what I mean?
How did you know I have both a Lambo and a Bugatti? I'm like, come on now.
Ladies love fast things. Well, not all the time, if you catch my drift. But
no. What? Okay.
You know what? We've dove so much into the offense. I want to get into the defensive side of the ball, my friend. I think although the offense is exciting, I think the defense is where the real crux of this season lies. Because those guys, again, on offense, they're talented. Like you said, they know how to produce. They're going to get their numbers. They're going to put points on the board, right? It's just a matter of how it looks. But the defense, there are a plethora of question marks. And you've kind of already laid out some of your concerns with that defense, right? And the Philadelphia Eagles, they've made a handful of calculated risks. We talked about it briefly. Giving Bryce Huff that big contract, right? You also trade Hassan Reddick. You also go in and bring Devin White, someone who has had success, but who's kind of been on the downslope in his career. What goes through your mind when I lay out some of those concerns that people have, and then name some ones that maybe you haven't mentioned quite yet?
Coming out of minicamp, one of my major takeaways was whether or not this defense understands what's really being asked of them. And that's when I'm talking about the defensive line, because Fletcher Cox isn't here anymore. And I loved hearing both Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter talk about, like, I think it was Jordan Davis's quote specifically. Jalen Carter said something along these lines, but Jalen Carter said that, or sorry, Jordan Davis said this specifically. Jalen Carter said something along these lines. But Davis came out and said, Nolan's coming to save us. Yes. This is our show now. He got in the best shape of his professional career in the offseason. His goal is to be a offensive line breaker and buster and still week 18, not just week 13 and then all of a sudden it's over. He does nothing left in the tank. Same thing with Jalen Carter. He wants to be that same type of player, be able to bring it for all 17 games through an 18-week schedule, and realize that there is no other veteran that's going to be picking up. It's their show now. A guy like I think a guy that's not going to be talked about enough, but a guy that's being asked a lot of is Milton Williams, because now Milton Williams is officially that number 3 guy in that rotation that's going to have to go out there and get the job done. And I love the idea of Vic Fangio when he was in Miami. He wanted to trade for Milton Williams, but how he wouldn't do it when he said that at his press conference. So I think right there, that's where every defense starts with the Philadelphia Eagles. It starts with 3 interior defensive linemen, and I'll give way to the nose tackle idea with Jordan Davis as well. Excuse me. And then those guys being able to get that penetration, get that pressure in the middle, so that guys like Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat can get around the edge. Brandon Graham can give us whatever he's got left coming off the edge as well. That's going to be a huge thing for this defense. And it is a concern because, again, just like Cam Jurgens and Jalen Hurts, we haven't seen Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter be the stars of the show with no veteran support behind them. Milton Williams is not a rookie by any means, but he's certainly not Fletcher Cox. He's not Javon Hargrave, for instance. So that's a concern for me, just seeing those guys take to the next level, and then when they take it to the next level, staying that level for a full schedule. Isaiah Rodgers, I'm still a little perplexed on. I didn't have a lot of confidence in him being a starting outside corner, in all honesty, but that seems to be the way the Eagles are going. That could change quickly, but I got confidence in 2 of the 3 cornerback positions, in Darius Slay, as well as Quenyon Mitchell in the middle, and he's a rookie. He still has to prove it at the NFL level, but I really like what I've seen from him so far. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, when you talk about a Vic Fangio defense, people talk about quarters, people talk about a lack of aggression. Those are 2 big buzz statements or words when it comes to Vic Fangio. There's 2 more I want to add in there. Freedom and communication. I'm sorry, discipline. Freedom and discipline. When you understand the freedom you can have in a well-disciplined defense, stay with me, that's where you can excel. And I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has a great understanding of where that freedom is in a Vic Fangio scheme. I was listening to guys, they were actually on Hard Knocks. People can go back and watch this. I was listening to members of the Dolphins defense talk about Vic Fangio before everything hit the wall, apparently. And they were talking about how a lot of teams in the league run his defense because it's had success. The key is cracking the code. But once you understand what Vic Fangio is asking of you, and you understand the communication, you understand from a defensive back position, switch offs, you understand from a safety position, doing that as well. Once you have that understanding, you know the freedom you're going to have. And I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has a great understanding of that. From what I've seen from Reed Blankenship, I think he's got a good understanding of it as well. But really, it lies for me in this team in staying healthy and the cornerback position with Isaiah Rodgers, see how quickly they would make a change. Hopefully they don't have to. Hopefully they're right, I'm wrong, and that's that. The strangest thing, though, Tone, about this version of defense, I can't remember a time where I was this excited, even through the preseason, of watching Eagles linebackers. Like, what? Yeah, we're not supposed to have that feeling. Jeremiah Trout Jr., Jacoby Dean, Devin White, excuse me. Watching these guys really develop through the preseason. Even Ben Von Sumeren has gotten in the backfield a couple times.
Wait, so you're high on the linebacker room? Just want to make sure.
No. Put it this way. I'm high on it in this regard. I've never been excited about a whole unit of linebackers with the Eagles. I'm excited about what these guys could do. I think what they're going to be asked to do in a Vic Fangio defense, they're not. Look, they blitzed in the preseason. I would be shocked if they were a top 15 blitz percentage team in the NFL. Like, shocked if that's the case. But I think you finally have players that understand that position throughout the depth chart, as opposed to one solid guy in TJ Edwards, one solid guy in Zach Cunningham, for crying out loud, and a guy in Nakobe Dean who is finally healthy. So that, to me, I think gives you a good idea of what this defense could do on the interior, on the in the box, I should say, from those linebackers in this defensive line.
When it comes to the overall success of this defense, which player are you looking towards to truly carry that mantle? Basically, what I'm asking is, whose success is directly contingent? How can I word this? The Eagles' defense.
Who's the key? Who's the key to it all?
Who's the key to it all, basically, right? Whose success is directly tied to the Eagles' overall defensive success here? Let's do it that way. Who are they really dependent on to really take that next step and do their job? If this person doesn't do their job, everything else fails. Who does that fall on, Farzy?
It is a good question. From a leadership standpoint, I think they're going to be looking at Devin White. But from a production standpoint, I think they're going to be looking at Jalen Carter. And I know he's a second-year player, and people want to push it aside, whatever. Again, what do the Eagles do? The Eagles build on the interior of that defensive line. They build on edge rushers, too. They want to get after the quarterback. Sure, they want to protect their quarterback with their offensive line. But when it comes to this Eagles team, it's always been about the offensive defensive line. But when you talk about the defense, I think if Jalen Carter has a Pro Bowl year, this Eagles defense is going to be, at the worst, a top 10 defense in the NFL. If Jalen Carter gets that push up the middle, if Jalen Carter is able to take advantage of instances where Jordan Davis is getting double teamed, and Jalen Carter can get after the quarterback, and then he's opening up things for guys on the outside as well, I think that will change everything. Because Jordan Davis will have to take up a lot of those double teams. Jalen Carter will have to cash in. I think Jalen Carter will get the sexy numbers. I think Jordan Davis will be the guy on the stat sheet. You're like, whoa, geez, did he even play? And it's like, did you watch him? How many times he was double teamed, triple teamed, helping guys out? Did you watch how many times that happened? But I think Jalen Carter is going to be the guy to get you maybe 9 sacks this year. From a defensive tackle standpoint, that's pretty damn good. If he flourishes this year, I think the entire defense flourishes. So that for me is going to be a huge thing. And if they do go back into the quarters positions or quarters coverage that Vic Fangio is so known for, then you're going to need that push up front to make sure that you get to the quarterback. And I think that all starts with Jalen Carter.
Is it fair to say that although Jalen Carter's success is directly tied to the Eagles' success, is it fair to say that Jordan Davis' success is the nexus of this defense? Because, again, you mentioned how Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter's going to eat on one-on-ones for Jordan Davis. You got to eat up space. You got to take on double teams. Your conditioning has to be in top shape.
Yeah,
so,
and again, going into this year, I agree with what you're saying. But Jordan Davis, I think that's just who he's built to be. I don't think Jordan Davis is built to get after the quarterback and get sacks, or I don't see him having a similar career to Fletcher Cox. Maybe in the last 3 or 4 years of Fletcher Cox in the NFL, maybe you'll see a little bit of that. But I think Jordan Davis is built to just be take on 2 members of that offensive line and make sure somebody else is getting the flashy numbers. And if he does that with great consistency, then I think you're going to see a lot. I think going into this season, I know he's going to get those double teams. And if they shift it and they try to go over to Jalen Carter, well, then, Jordan Davis is going to eat. But I think it's all going to come down to Jalen Carter cashing in. And one of the things that Vic Fangio talked about a couple of weeks ago was, a lot of guys get there. They get to the quarterback, but they don't get him down. The quarterback sidesteps him. The quarterback pump fakes him. The quarterback slips out of a tackle. Jalen Carter's got to be there to finish. There is something to finishing. It's not just about getting to the spot. It's not practice where you just touch the quarterback in the red shirt and he's done. It's the real thing. So Jalen Carter's able to do that. This defense is going to look a hell of a lot better, because then you're also not just focusing on Jordan Davis. You're also focusing on Jalen Carter. And then Bryce Huff gets to go going on those passing downs a hell of a lot more. And hopefully, elevate his play to not just a 40% snap guy, but the 71% snap guy that Hassan Reddick was. So everything, if Jalen Carter can get there and finish and be that threat every single time, that opens up so many doors for this Eagles defense as a whole.
Give me your perspective on Nolan Smith. His name has been through the wire a lot throughout training camp and preseason. Some people are still optimistic about him. Some people are already ready to call him a bust. I'm not quite there yet at all. I want to get your perspective on Nolan Smith because, again, you mentioned how finishing is important. There's an art to finishing. And throughout the preseason, he has 2 sacks through 3 games, right? He's shown an ability to finish when given the opportunity. But when you think about how he got to the destination, the first sack in that Ravens game coming off the line untouched, the left tackle didn't even see you coming. 3rd string, 2nd string left tackle. How much stock can I put into that? And then the Patriots game, you run into a double team, you get chipped, basically knocked into the path of the quarterback, yet you still finish. You get the sack. How much stock do you put into those performances? And give me your overall perspective on Nolan Smith right now and his upside.
My opinion of Nolan Smith hasn't changed for the last 6 months. And my opinion in the offseason was that he's not in my immediate plans for this Eagles defense. I mean, sure, you want to develop him? Yeah, he's a first-round pick. And you know who Nolan Smith has to be extremely grateful for? Jalen Carter. Because Jalen Carter, if Jalen Carter didn't exist, then we'd all be all pissed off about Nolan Smith and his lack of production in his rookie season.
What?
People don't forget. Exactly. People forget that Nolan Smith, after his first preseason game, was addressed to the media, and he was talking about how hungry he is to play. Oh, man, I'm hungry. You got to eat off the floor. He's like, my old coach used to tell me, you got to eat off the floor. And in that same press conference where everyone ran with that quote about how hungry he is, he also mentioned somebody asked him, like, somebody knew something about his shoulder. And they're like, what about that shoulder? And he's like, oh, sometimes it works, sometimes it wasn't. It's my baby. And I'm like, what? What was that? Are you a 10-year veteran or are you a rookie? You're talking about your shoulder sometimes not working? Then in the offseason, he had his shoulder, I believe, scoped. And I went and thought back to Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean was a 3rd-round pick, could have very well easily been a 2nd-round pick. But because of a shoulder report or a report on his shoulder, he fell to the 3rd round. Nolan Smith somehow with a shoulder that picked when it worked and when it didn't was a 1st-round pick. Make that make sense to me. And then I saw nothing. I saw nothing from him in his rookie season. Go out there and look like a guy that looked like he was about to be hell unleashed. And then this offseason, I haven't seen anything. Seems like a good dude. Seems like he's willing to work. But he's got to go out there and show me something. I didn't see anything from him his rookie year. I didn't see anything. But the 2 sacks, great. The 2nd sack, the fact that he was bumped a little bit and kept his feet and finished, normally that doesn't show me anything. But with Nolan Smith, who was a straight speed guy, it showed me a little bit that he at least kept his feet while he was getting chipped a little bit.
Hey, reasonable. He definitely has some pressure mounting on his shoulders. The Eagles are gravely dependent on his production and his overall success with the Philadelphia Eagles. I just got a couple more for you, Farzetta. You've given me so much time and so much insight. The last thing I want to do is take advantage of it. I really do appreciate you, my friend. I just got a couple more for you. Sure. Last one on the defensive side of the ball. And this one's a little bit more fun, a little lighter.
Okay.
Who's your sleeper to have a breakout 2024 season? Not someone that we always – who's that underrated guy that you're looking to take that next step in their development and production?
I mean, am I counting Milton Williams in this? Or do you want someone even more under the radar? Because there's 2 big, sexy names on the interior defensive line, but Milton Williams is right there, as far as I'm concerned, as that number 3 guy that's under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like we talk about Milton a lot. I feel like you know what it is. I feel like we all know Milton was pretty good. It was just a matter of him getting his opportunity, right?
Okay,
give me someone who's a little bit more on the fringe.
There is a curiosity, and I know he could be a starter, but he's a first-year Eagle. I don't know what it is about Zach Bond, but since he got here, Vic Fangio has done nothing but sing his praises. And this is a guy that's a special teamer out of New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And I think if the Eagles have their druthers, then it's Dean and White as their number 1 and 2 linebackers. But Zach Bond intrigues me, not just for the fact of playing special teams, but for the fact that Vic Fangio seemed enamored with him. There was something that went on with him watching film on the Saints that Vic Fangio just thought, there's something here that I can use. There's definitely speed. There's definitely smarts. But if I put him in the right position to make plays in my defense, he could make a lot of plays in my defense. So that is intriguing. And I don't think too many people are thinking about him right now as a starting outside linebacker next to Devin White. After that, I am pretty intrigued with Booker. Watching him, he kind of had a tenacious attitude. Johnson's another guy in training camp and in the preseason that wasn't afraid to get into the backfield. Both those guys kind of have tenacious attitudes on the defensive line that I think everyone knows that you need. They have that snarl about them. They'll get hit, they'll get back up, then they'll force the ball loose, stuff like that. There's a certain attitude and edge about those two players that I think Vic Fangio is going to love, because if those guys have their success, not to the degree, but similarly to a Jalen Carter or a Jordan Davis on the inside, if those guys have success, then those are guys that you don't have to worry about dialing up blitzes for those guys to get penetration or for you as a defense to get after the quarterback. So if those guys continue to be tenacious like you saw in the preseason and rush the passer, pressure them, disrupt the ball in some way, shape, or form, then you're going to be looking at some unexpected guys that you only really learned about in the preseason having an impact on the regular season. So those are probably the two most under-the-radar guys in Johnson and Booker that could really have their stock rise in the early goings of the preseason, in the early goings of the season.
Okay, sounds good to me. Final question for you, Farzy. Give me your assessment of the current state of the NFC East, the NFC, and should the Philadelphia Eagles be considered serious Super Bowl contenders despite the setback in 2023?
Absolutely. I'll start with the Giants. To me, I can't respect the team that has Daniel Jones as their quarterback. Like there are certain people that I just look at and I just go, what? No, like that, this guy, what? Are you serious about this? So they're going through a transition, obviously.
But Farzy, he grew a beard. You should take him more seriously now. I mean, he's part of the club, right?
As a bearded man, he should get the hell out. If you have a full head of hair, you're growing a beard, get out of here. That's what I say. Anyway, so the Giants don't scare me. The Commanders I find interesting because I write them off every single year. It's like I'll write the Commanders off like they don't even exist, and then I'll go, the Cowboys are going to be good in the regular season. They're going to choke late. That's what they do. Choke in the playoffs. But I am looking at Daniels and looking at guys like that on the Commanders and changes they've made and ownership, obviously. I know we're all too familiar with Josh Harris here in Philadelphia, but it is a different regime. And Dan Quinn's a good football coach. And Cliff Kingsbury is a good offensive coordinator that was a little over his skis with the Arizona Cardinals. So they're going through a similar thing other than the head coach change than we're going through here in Philadelphia. So I think they're going to be a thorn in the Eagles' side, and I always try to acknowledge that going into the season. That the Commanders figure out a way to be a thorn in the Eagles' side. And I know the Eagles were 2-0 against them last year, but those weren't easy wins. The Cowboys and the Eagles, that's really what I think it's going to come down to. Even with Daniels reviving things in Washington, I don't think he's going to come out of the gate and just be a Pro Bowl quarterback and dominate. I think there's going to be a learning curve there. I don't see him as C.J. Stroud was with the Texans. So for me, I don't take the Commanders as serious. But the Cowboys, they're the team that everybody's focused on. The Eagles know the focus is on that. The Cowboys know the focus is on that matchup. We all know as a fan base the focus is on that matchup. And the Cowboys are still a very good football team. So although I see them choking every single year, I look at them winning against the Eagles in the regular season as adorable because it gets their hopes up so high. And then the Eagles just make sure they crash and burn by the time the end of the season comes around. So for me, I think it's the Eagles division. The Eagles are stacked. Offensively speaking, everywhere you look, they're stacked. And you got a play caller that has, I mean, think about this. Jaylen Hurts in the past has needed 2 years in a system. There is not that excuse this year with Kellen Moore, who's got more experience than all the coordinators he's played for combined going into this season. On a defensive standpoint, Vic Fangio, I don't even need to point it out, but he's got far more experience than Jonathan Gannon and Sean Desai taking over this defense. He's got 20 years. You're talking about 25 years of coordinator experience in the positions that they are now. That's wild to me. So this might be the best coached team we've ever seen of the Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni era. And you combine that with the most talented team we have seen, I think things are shaping up pretty easy for the Eagles to be winning this NFC East. I have them as a clear-cut number one. to win the NFC East.
Farzy, my friend, it's always a fun time when we speak. You've given me so much to sink my teeth into. You've given the people, right? You've given the people so much of yourself over these past over a decade, right? Of just doing content and just being in this industry, my friend. And you've stood tall through all the adversity that you and I both have experienced in our own respective ways. But my friend, before you get out of here, please promote your shows, promote what you're working on. Please promote the pre and post game show. Anything that people need to know about what you're connected to, please let them know right now how they can find it.
Farzy Show. Catch me on the Farzy Show on the YouTube channel, the Farzy Show. You can also catch me on Locked On Sports Philadelphia. Locked On Sports Philadelphia for all your Phillies postcast needs. After every Phillies game, I give you 30 minutes. We talk Phillies on Locked On Sports Philadelphia. So make sure you like and subscribe to the Farzy Show. Like and subscribe to Locked On Sports Philadelphia. Also give you your Sixers content there as well for your 76ers postcasts. And then make sure you like and subscribe to the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel, where myself, Derek Gunn, and Seth Joyner will give you your Parks Casino pre- and post-game show brought to you by Pond Lee Hockey. Other than that, I'm sure there's a VHS tape somewhere of me in the second grade play. So you can see me when I was in second grade. I think I was the Big Bad Wolf that year in the Three Piggy Opera, so that was pretty impressive. I was on Fox 29 this morning. I played one game with the Harlem Globetrotters. And not as a Washington General, thank you. I flew in an F-16. I might be in your backyard right now. Whoever's listening, I might be in your backyard right now. You never know. And that pretty much covers it all.
Did you mention that you are the at-home chef and you are the man with the plan in the kitchen? I'll tell you that.
I'm gonna send you some pictures of the braciole I'm making, the chicken cutlet, all that type jazz, friend.
Farzy, once again, I really do appreciate your time. I appreciate the effort and the tenacity that you bring every time you speak, my friend. It's always good talking to you. Got a lot of love for you, my friend.
Back at you, brother. Hey, just make sure you send me my wooden samurai sword before the next time we talk.
I'll think about it. Farzy, my friend, you take care. Godspeed, sir.
All right, my love to everybody in your circle, buddy.
Yes, sir. Shout out to my man Farzy, man. He's one of one. Does amazing work doing the work that he does do. The Farzy Show, the new pre and post game show, hosted by Bet Parks Casino, sponsored by the Pond Lee Hockey firm. Man, oh man, you guys see the energy Farzy brings every time he speaks, man. And I told you guys I had a special guest, somebody that I worked with before, someone that I trust, someone that's always given me a lot of insight, someone who's always been very open to me and available to me. So once again, shout out to my man Marc Farzetta, also known as Farzy. Go check him out on the Farzy Show. Go check him out every game day with Seth Joyner and Derek Gunn, covering your Philadelphia Eagles pre and post game, and it's straight like that.